Welcome to Credit and Coffee. Today, I'm sharing the story of how an algorithmic layoff and crushing inflation trapped me between the needs of my aging parents and my growing children, forcing a painful search for a new path. The thin morning light, a pale, almost grudging illumination, struggled to penetrate the heavy, overcast sky outside my window, filtering through the slightly grimy pane to cast a weak, diffuse grayness across the cramped confines of what had become my makeshift home office. It invariably found the lazy, almost mocking dance of dust motes suspended in the stale air directly above the scarred, chipped surface of my inherited antique desk, each tiny speck catching and reflecting the meager light, illuminating a subtle yet undeniable sheen of desperation that had slowly, insidiously settled over every object, every memory, every corner of my existence within these four walls. This was the landscape of my new reality, a visual echo of the internal landscape of my soul, where a perpetual low-frequency hum of anxiety had taken root deep beneath my ribs, a constant, vibrating counterpoint to the distant, innocent laughter of my children, a sound that should have been pure joy, but often felt like a painful reminder of responsibilities I was struggling to uphold. It wasn't always like this quiet, insidious hum of anxiety that had become a permanent resident within me, a relentless, vibrating echo beneath my ribs, serving as a constant, jarring counterpoint to the otherwise pure and distant laughter of my kids echoing from another room, a sound that once filled me with unadulterated pride and now often felt like a heavy weight. There was a time not so long ago when that hum was one of ambition, of vibrant, almost tangible success, a resonant frequency of a life meticulously built on a foundation of shrewd investments and a relentlessly thriving startup. I can still vividly recall the crisp, almost intoxicating smell of fresh ink on newly signed contracts, the satisfying, melodious clink of celebratory champagne glasses echoing through our modern office space, and the almost intoxicating, boundless belief that our team, our little tech company, had truly cracked the elusive code, that we were riding an unstoppable trajectory towards a monumental IPO. A public offering that would cement our legacy and secure our futures beyond wildest dreams. The air in our bustling office then had been thick, almost palpable, with the intoxicating scent of pure possibility, a thrilling metallic tang of groundbreaking innovation mixed harmoniously with the rich, complex aroma of freshly brewed premium coffee, the kind sourced from exotic, far-off lands, the kind that now, in this stark new reality, cost more than a week's worth of essential groceries for my family, a bitter irony I often swallowed with a gulp. My early income from that burgeoning venture had been not just substantial, but truly transformative, allowing us, my wife and me, to acquire the house, not merely a dwelling, but a sprawling, beautifully appointed place situated within a prestigious neighborhood where the lawns were always impossibly immaculate, meticulously manicured, and the cars parked in every driveway were perpetually new, gleaming symbols of success, a true, undeniable symbol of our rapid ascendance. Of the abundant wealth we were accumulating with what felt like effortless ease, the heavy, polished oak front door with its intricate brass knocker felt reassuringly solid beneath my touch, a fortress against any potential outside world woes, a tangible testament to the grand dreams we were so confidently building, brick by polished brick. Every gleaming surface, every expensive, custom-designed fixture, every meticulously custom-built shelf brimming with curated books and art seemed to echo our resounding success, reinforcing the deep-seated feeling that we had truly, irrevocably arrived, that our financial future was not just securely safeguarded, but dazzlingly, brilliantly bright, a perpetual sunrise. We had even dabbled, perhaps a little too enthusiastically, in the volatile world of cryptocurrencies, riding the initial, exhilarating wave of Bitcoin's meteoric surge, convinced of our unparalleled foresight and undeniable market savvy, believing ourselves to be savvy pioneers boldly navigating a brand new financial frontier, a feeling of self-assured brilliance that powerfully bolstered my confidence in our overall risk management strategy, even as a tiny, almost imperceptible voice of caution whispered about the inherent volatility of such speculative ventures, a voice I effortlessly dismissed amidst the deafening roar of rising asset prices and the celebratory din of self-congratulation. My wife, bless her unwavering faith, trusted my judgment implicitly, completely, and why in that era of apparent Midas touch wouldn't she? Everything I laid my hands upon, it seemed, genuinely turned to gold back then, gleaming and precious. Her eyes, usually so discerning, so sharp in their assessment, reflected back my own unshakable, almost arrogant belief in our upward trajectory, mirroring my confidence. Our meticulously curated portfolio of investments grew exponentially. Our various stocks climbed steadily, consistently, often exceeding our most optimistic, even audacious, projections, and the comforting idea of a substantial passive income stream generated from our meticulously chosen rental properties filled me with an almost impregnable sense of security, an ironclad insurance policy against any future market downturns, a solid, unyielding bedrock upon which our future generations could confidently build their own prosperous lives. We had moved far beyond just merely meeting our budget. We were, or so it felt in those heady days, actively constructing an empire, an imposing edifice of financial stability and generational wealth that would shelter us and our children, and their children for untold generations, providing an almost mythical sense of freedom from the anxieties that relentlessly plagued so many others in the world. We meticulously planned exotic family vacations to sun-drenched beaches and ancient historical sites, invested heavily in cutting-edge educational programs and private tutors for the kids, ensuring their bright futures, and even began to seriously consider significant philanthropic endeavors, convinced we had more than enough to generously spare, a true luxury. The future in those days seemed truly limitless, stretching out before us, painted in vibrant, iridescent hues of prosperity, effortless ease, and boundless opportunity. But that, I now understand with a heavy heart, was a cruel mirage, a deceptive trick of the light reflecting off those very same polished surfaces, mirroring back an illusion. The air in our lives, once so clean and crisp with the exhilarating promise of infinite growth, slowly, imperceptibly, began to feel heavy, stale, a stagnant weight pressing down. The first cracks in this seemingly impenetrable facade were almost imperceptible, subtle, like the gentle creak of old wood in the quiet of the night that you effortlessly dismiss as merely the house settling, or the faint, almost acrid scent of something burning, far off in the distance, easily ignored amidst the distractions of daily life. Our startup, once hailed as a market darling, began to inexplicably lose its vibrant shine, not with a sudden, dramatic bang of collapse, but with a slow, agonizing slide into what felt like inevitable obsolescence. New, far nimbler competitors, armed with fresh, disruptive ideas, emerged from the digital shadows, their innovative offerings like perfectly aimed daggers to our once cutting-edge products, and the vital flow of capital began to dry up, the once eager investors, who had previously clamored for a piece of our pie, now shying away, their once firm promises of further funding evaporating faster than morning dew under a relentless sun. The sheer, overwhelming stress of watching my carefully constructed dream falter, of fighting tooth and nail for every new contract, every minor cash injection, every scrap of market share, took an immense, unbearable toll on my physical and mental well-being. The long, solitary nights spent hunched over complex spreadsheets, the early, dread-filled mornings consumed by annoying anxiety, the persistent metallic taste of defeat ever present in my mouth, all began to relentlessly wear down my spirit, stripping it bare. I found myself, almost without realizing it, starting to make moral compromises, small, almost imperceptible ones at first, rationalizing them as necessary evils, as critical survival tactics required to keep the dream alive, to protect the livelihoods and jobs of my loyal employees, to preserve the substantial investments of my friends and family who had trusted me implicitly with their hard-earned money, their unwavering faith now feeling like an impossibly heavy mantle on my shoulders. The CEO, a man I had once deeply admired for his boundless vision and unyielding tenacity, grew increasingly distant, his eyes hollowed by the crushing weight of impending failure, his once booming, infectious laugh replaced by a quiet, strained cough that echoed in the cavernous, emptying hallways. My own boss, a former partner with whom I had shared so many triumphant toasts, so many late-night brainstorming sessions fueled by ambition, began to look at me with a strange, unsettling mix of pity and thinly veiled accusation, his gaze a silent, damning indictment of our shared, rapidly crumbling ambition, a silent question of where we had gone wrong. The initial, exhilarating glory of entrepreneurship swiftly gave way to the soul-crushing grind of trying to keep a dying enterprise on life support, a constant, desperate battle against the inevitable, each small, hard-won victory feeling utterly hollow, each predictable setback a brutal, visceral punch to the gut. The once delightful aroma of our expensive premium coffee now only served as a bitter, almost mocking reminder of those much better, far more prosperous times. Then came the broader seismic market shifts, a tidal wave of economic instability that swallowed us whole. The cryptocurrency bubble, which had lifted us so high, burst with an unexpected, violent, explosive pop, not a gentle deflating, taking with it not just a significant chunk of our highly speculative investments, but also leaving behind not just financial loss, but a bitter, acrid taste of profound foolishness, of having chased a fleeting, illusory phantom. The sharp, sickening plunge of our digital assets felt like a deeply personal betrayal by the market itself, a cruel, mocking joke played directly on my once unshakable, now utterly misplaced confidence. Simultaneously, the global stock market grew violently volatile, its once predictable upward trajectory now a dizzying roller coaster, our hard-won gains eroding slowly but surely, each tick downwards on the electronic ticker a fresh, agonizing wound to our rapidly shrinking portfolio, bleeding us dry. The once robust passive income streams from our meticulously acquired rental properties dwindled dramatically as unexpected, exorbitant maintenance costs soared, a persistently leaky roof requiring emergency repairs here, a completely broken water heater needing urgent replacement there. Always unexpected, always expensive, always at the worst possible time, and our tenants, struggling with their own rapidly rising cost of living, began to delay rent payments, demand concessions, further squeezing our already strained finances. It was the insidious, creeping grip of inflation that truly began to tighten its suffocating hold, however, a slow, relentless python squeeze around our once comfortable, carefree lives, gradually constricting our every breath. Gasoline prices at the pump seemed to change not just daily, but sometimes hourly, each upward tick a small, painful theft from our pockets, adding a grim, constant tally to our mental ledger of growing expenses. Groceries, once a simple, effortless weekly ritual of abundance, became a careful, agonizing exercise in meticulous budgeting, a strategic game of careful avoidance and painful compromise. The cost of a humble carton of eggs or a simple loaf of bread an almost unbelievable, mind-numbing sum, their textures and colors scrutinized with desperate intensity for maximum, dwindling value. The once effortless abundance of fresh produce, gourmet cheeses, and specialty items was gradually replaced by careful, often reluctant selections of basic staples, the brightly lit supermarket aisles feeling less like a pantry of plenty and more like a desolate battlefield where every penny counted, every decision a defeat. The constant, gnawing anxiety born from rampant inflation meant that every single purchase was questioned, every bill scrutinized with a deep, weary frown, the electric bill, the water bill, the internet bill all steadily creeping upwards, their cold, numerical demands relentlessly eating away at our precious peace of mind, leaving us perpetually on edge. We were, I realized with a profound sense of despair, living in a beautiful, gilded cage, a grand house that demanded far more than we could comfortably, sustainably give, becoming house poor, in real time, trapped by a mortgage that felt heavier with each passing month, its interest rates a tightening knot around our dwindling financial resources. The substantial payments for that grand symbol of our former success became a suffocating burden, a source of profound shame, not the pride it once embodied, the highly polished surfaces now reflecting only my growing, inescapable despair, my hollowed eyes. The very walls of our home, once a comforting, protective embrace, now felt like silent, accusing observers of our slow, painful decline closing in on us. My job, once a source of intellectual stimulation and professional growth, became less about innovation and more about sheer, brutal survival, a desperate clinging to the golden handcuffs of a once high salary, even as the company pivoted sharply away from its original inspiring vision, transforming into something I barely recognized, a corporate husk, a pale, lifeless shadow of its former self. I utterly hated the moral compromises I was routinely forced to make, the constant, suffocating pressure to cut corners, to deliver less value for more money, each painful decision chipping away relentlessly at my fragile sense of integrity, eroding it piece by piece. The psychological weight of living a life I deeply disliked, even with its rapidly diminishing material comforts, was immense, an oppressive, heavy blanket of discontent that smothered any lingering sparks of joy, extinguishing them completely. The scent of our shared office, once a place of vibrant collaboration and boundless energy, now carried the stale, acrid smell of corporate despair, of dreams deferred indefinitely and hopes quietly extinguished, replaced by a cynical resignation. The final crushing blow to that entire chapter of my professional life came not from a person, not from a direct confrontation, but from an impersonal, uncaring system, a cold, calculating entity. I was summoned into a virtual meeting, a cold clinical video conference where my boss, looking visibly uncomfortable and meticulously avoiding any direct eye contact, his face pixelated and strangely distant on the screen, delivered the devastating news with a flat, emotionless tone. "The company is restructuring," he said, his voice utterly devoid of human emotion, "optimizing for efficiency. An algorithm identified your role as redundant. Fired by an algorithm." The words themselves felt sterile, devoid of any human empathy, a cold, impersonal punch to the gut delivered by a soulless spreadsheet, a faceless line of code. There was no personal grievance, no grand, dramatic betrayal, just a cold, calculated decision emanating from a machine, a system. It stripped me bare of my dignity, of the carefully constructed narrative I had built around my professional life, of the years, the countless hours, the very essence of myself I had poured into building something from nothing, brick by painful brick. I was not fired for incompetence or misconduct. I was simply deemed an unnecessary variable, an expendable data point in a vast, uncaring, and utterly indifferent system, replaced by a more efficient calculation. The emotional toll of that unexpected layoff was immediate, visceral, and utterly crushing, leaving me gasping for air. I felt like a lost ghost haunting my own home, wandering aimlessly through the familiar rooms that suddenly seemed to mock my newfound idleness, my unwanted presence. The profound silence in the house during the day, once a cherished luxury, became a deafening echo chamber of my professional demise, each gentle creak of the floorboards, each distant, muffled car horn amplifying my overwhelming sense of isolation and despair. My wife, usually so stoic, so unyielding in her resolve, tried her best to be supportive, her touch on my arm a soft, worried gesture, her fingers tracing invisible patterns, but I could clearly see the new lines of worry etched around her eyes, deepening with each passing day, a painful reflection of my own growing, consuming despair. We had always prided ourselves on being open, transparent about our finances, but in my desperate desire to protect her from the full devastating extent of our previous speculative losses, especially those from the catastrophic cryptocurrency failures, I had regrettably kept a quiet, almost imperceptible distance, fostering a secret debt of regret that now weighed heavily, suffocatingly on my conscience, making every shared meal, every quiet moment feel tinged with an unspoken immense burden, a truth held captive. The strain on our once solid marriage became palpable, a thin, almost invisible wire stretched taut to its breaking point between unspoken anxieties and mounting, relentless financial pressures, a quiet, humming tension that vibrated just beneath the surface of our forced normalcy, threatening to snap. We spoke in hushed, fearful tones about shrinking budgets and looming bills only after the children were soundly asleep, the deepening darkness in the room amplifying our every fear, our every desperate whisper. The kids, oblivious in their boundless youthful energy, their bright, innocent laughter echoing innocently through the house, continued, as children do, to demand what kids naturally demand: new shoes for rapidly growing feet that seemed to expand overnight, school trips that promised exciting adventures to new places, birthday parties for friends that required thoughtfully chosen gifts. Each innocent request a tiny, sharp barb in my already wounded pride, piercing me anew. They were simply too young, too innocent, to truly understand the crushing reality that their father, once a provider of effortless abundance, was now struggling desperately to keep pace with the relentless rising tide of everyday expenses, each forced no to a simple request a fresh, searing sting of failure, a stark reminder of my inadequacy. And then there were my parents, a whole other layer of responsibility and emotional weight. They were aging, their once vibrant health slowly but surely failing, their bodies becoming increasingly frail with each passing year, and their small, once thriving family business, a quaint local hardware store that perpetually smelled of sawdust, fresh paint, and boundless possibility, had slowly withered, year after painful year, under the crushing weight of ruthless chain store competition and rapidly changing consumer habits, its once bustling aisles now quiet, dusty relics of a bygone era. Echoing with ghosts, the quiet desperation of their increasingly difficult situation became more profoundly evident with each phone call, their voices growing fainter, tinged with a weariness I hadn't noticed before, each visit revealing more profound weariness in their stooped posture, more lines of worry etched deeper into their kind faces. My mother's accumulating medical debt, stemming from an unexpected complex surgery a year prior, a procedure that had completely drained their meager life savings and left them with crushing bills, was a constant, gnawing concern, a silent, persistent throb behind my eyes, a crushing burden that had slowly eroded their peace of mind, replacing it with sleepless nights. My father, a man of quiet, unyielding pride, his hands gnarled and rough from decades of honest, backbreaking labor, struggled immensely to admit how much he truly needed help. But his weary eyes, often fixed on some distant, unseen point in the middle distance, told a different, far more heartbreaking story. A silent, unspoken plea for assistance that I, in my current state, could barely provide, if at all. I was undeniably, officially a member of the dreaded sandwich generation, pressed relentlessly from above by the urgent needs of my aging, vulnerable parents, and simultaneously from below by the ceaseless demands of my growing children, with absolutely no solid ground beneath my own rapidly weakening feet, feeling utterly crushed, flattened, thin as a piece of discarded paper, squeezed painfully between their overwhelming needs, unable to breathe. The professional jealousy that had once simmered subtly among some of my former friends, those who had watched my earlier meteoric success with a complex mixture of admiration and barely concealed envy, now transformed into a subtle, almost patronizing pity, which felt infinitely worse, far more humiliating, than outright scorn or open criticism. Their carefully worded sympathies, their knowing, sidelong glances, poisoned the very well of our friendships, leaving me feeling profoundly isolated and deeply ashamed, a social pariah in my own once vibrant social circle. Financial comparison, once a powerful motivator, a driving force to achieve more, now felt like a cruel, distorted mirror, reflecting back only my perceived failures, my current inadequacy. The arduous search for a new job was a humiliating, soul-crushing odyssey, an endless, punishing trek through a landscape of rejection. My midlife career change, or rather, the forced, abrupt pivot, felt like an insurmountable obstacle, a mountain too high to climb. The market was undeniably flooded with younger, hungrier talent, fresh graduates armed with new, cutting-edge skills and significantly lower salary expectations. And my extensive experience, once coveted and highly valued, now seemed to pigeonhole me into antiquated roles that no longer truly existed or paid only a mere fraction of what I once earned. A bitter, metallic pill to swallow after years of meticulously climbing the corporate ladder, reaching for the highest rungs. The phone calls that never came back, the countless applications sent into a vast, digital abyss, never to be heard from again, the endless, soul-destroying rejections, each one a sharp, precise chip away at my dwindling spirit, a fresh layer of doubt settling over me, heavy and cold. I would walk the quiet, leaf-strewn suburban streets in the crisp chill of morning, the rhythmic crunch of gravel under my worn shoes a lonely, echoing sound, heading to yet another interview for jobs I was painfully overqualified for, positions that felt like a devastating step backwards, a regression into a past I thought I had escaped. The cold, biting air nipped at my exposed skin, feeling the literal and metaphorical weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders, an invisible burden. My breath misted visibly in the crisp air, a fleeting, ephemeral ghost of my own rapidly diminishing presence, my shrinking identity. I would often stop at the familiar, unassuming coffee shop near my old office building, a place I once frequented without a second thought, ordering a cheap, plain black coffee, the strong, dark aroma a bittersweet reminder of a life that felt a million miles away, a ghost of past prosperity lingering oppressively in the air around me. I'd cradle the warm, often chipped ceramic mug in my rough, trembling hands, feeling the coarse, unglazed texture against my fingers, watching the thin plume of steam curl upwards, carrying with it the lingering ghosts of my once vibrant ambition, dissipating into nothingness. I'd watch the endless stream of people rushing by outside the window, their faces set with unwavering purpose, their lives seemingly intact, their footsteps brisk and confidently purposeful, and a potent wave of quiet, profound desperation would wash over me, leaving me feeling utterly hollowed out, completely lost in a sea of strangers, a flotsam on an ocean of despair. The bills piled relentlessly high on the kitchen counter, a stark, undeniable physical manifestation of our accelerating decline. The electric bill higher than ever before, its stark, unforgiving numbers screaming silently against the pristine white paper, the mortgage statement a constant, looming reminder of the leviathan debt that threatened to swallow us whole, the credit card statements growing fatter, bolder, their bright red warnings screaming silently from the envelopes, each one a testament to the spiraling debt we were slowly, inevitably accruing, a suffocating, ever-expanding blanket of financial burden that threatened to smother us. We had liquidated most of our remaining stocks, sold off the few luxury items we still owned, a gleaming designer watch, a treasured piece of abstract art that once felt essential to our identity, but it felt like futilely pouring water into a bottomless bucket, the desperate efforts utterly futile, the outflow of money relentless, unstoppable. The terrifying idea of bankruptcy, once an unthinkable concept, a word whispered in hushed, horrified tones about other, less fortunate people, began to surface with terrifying regularity in the quiet, dark hours of the night, a terrifying last resort, its specter looming large and menacing over my many sleepless nights, a predator in the shadows. I even found myself, in fleeting moments of extreme weakness and profound despair, contemplating quick fixes, the seductive, dangerous whispers of the guilt and potential consequences of a small financial fraud brushing like a demon's breath on my shoulder, a fleeting, dark temptation, quickly dismissed with a shudder, but leaving behind a chilling, unsettling residue, a stark, horrifying reminder of how far I had truly fallen, how desperate I had become. The downward spiral of a gambling addiction, something I had once scoffed at as a pathetic weakness of character, now seemed like a dangerous, alluring abyss from which I had to actively recoil, its fleeting, illusory promise of escape almost overwhelmingly tempting in my vulnerable state. The painful memory of a friend's truly bad investment advice, which I had foolishly, blindly followed during the height of the crypto craze, now felt like a fresh, throbbing wound, a raw, burning pain, an echoing testament to my own profound poor judgment, my misguided trust. One particular evening, after yet another fruitless, soul-destroying day of endless job searching, the metallic tang of defeat still sharp and bitter in my mouth, I sat on the old, familiar porch swing with my wife, the rhythmic squeak of the chains a quiet, almost mournful counterpoint to the chirping crickets in the darkening yard, the setting sun painting the western sky in dramatic, fading shades of fiery orange and deep purple, casting long, melancholic shadows across our once vibrant, now slightly overgrown lawn. The innocent, carefree laughter of our children drifted from inside the house, pure and joyful, an unadulterated sound that, for a precious moment, cut through the oppressive gloom that had settled around me. She reached for my hand, her touch surprisingly soft and profoundly reassuring, her fingers intertwining gently with mine, a silent, powerful declaration of unwavering support, a lifeline. "We'll figure it out," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the insistent chirping of the crickets, yet laced with a gentle, unyielding resolve that resonated deep within the hollow core of me, igniting a tiny spark. "We always do." It wasn't a grand pronouncement, no elaborate, meticulously detailed plan or sudden, miraculous solution, but in its quiet certainty, its unshakable, profound belief in us, in our resilience, it was everything. A small, fragile ember of hope flickering bravely in the vast, overwhelming darkness that had consumed my life. That night, lying in bed, staring blankly at the dim ceiling, the familiar, comforting squeak of the aging floorboards overhead as one of the kids got up for a drink of water, the soft, rhythmic pad of their bare feet a gentle, reassuring sound, I looked at the ceiling, thinking, truly thinking, perhaps for the first time in months. My entire life, it suddenly seemed, had been rigidly defined by relentless accumulation, by ceaseless upward progress, by the relentless, often brutal pursuit of more, always more. But what, I truly asked myself in the stillness of the night, had I genuinely valued in that dizzying pursuit? Was it the grand, imposing house with its empty echoes, the sleek, expensive car, the impressive, coveted job title that once commanded respect and admiration? Or was it rather the steady, warm hand of my wife, reassuringly intertwined with my own, the boundless, infectious energy of my children, their innocent, profound questions and their soft, trusting embraces, the quiet, unyielding resilience of my aging parents, their gentle wisdom and unwavering, unconditional love? The chill of the early morning air that once felt like a sharp, personal threat, a biting reminder of my professional failings and inadequacy, now felt strangely like a cleansing breath, a fresh start, carrying with it the faint, earthy scent of damp soil and the promise of new, unexpected beginnings. This new perspective, a slow dawning, was a kind of wealth I had never truly appreciated, a quiet, profound richness that money could not buy. I started taking on odd jobs, anything, absolutely anything I could find, freelance writing for small, local businesses that needed a voice, poring over dusty ledgers for basic bookkeeping consulting, even some light manual labor that left my hands rough, calloused, and aching profoundly at the end of each long day, a stark, tangible contrast to the soft, manicured palms of my executive days, but a welcome, honest pain, a physical manifestation of honest effort, of earning my keep. It wasn't the kind of income I was used to, certainly not a salary that could effortlessly buy a new luxury car or cover another speculative investment in the volatile market, but it was income. It was something tangible, something real, earned by the sweat of my brow and the ache of my muscles, a small but steady flow that gradually, painstakingly, helped us manage our mounting debt, slowly, imperceptibly chipping away at the crushing credit card balances, one small payment at a time. We began to adjust our budget more strictly than ever before, meticulously tracking every single dollar, every penny, cutting out luxuries we once considered necessities, finding small, unexpected joys in simpler, more fundamental things. A supermarket menu, once a quick glance and a trolley dash, became a complex puzzle to solve, a strategic challenge to find the most nutritious and affordable options, comparing prices meticulously, choosing generic brands over premium ones, and the simple, wholesome meals we cooked together as a family, filled with basic, honest ingredients, felt more intimate, more cherished, infused with the warmth of shared effort and love. The comforting aroma of simmering stews and freshly baked bread now replaced the fleeting pleasure of expensive takeout meals. The empty cups on the table after a shared, simple breakfast became not just remnants of consumption, but quiet symbols of connection, each one a silent testament to another day faced together, another small victory against the tide. I deliberately started spending more time with my parents, truly present, helping them organize their piles of bills, deciphering complex, bewildering medical statements, fixing small, nagging things around their old, creaky house, a persistently leaky faucet, a squeaky door hinge, but most importantly, listening intently to their stories, their voices softer, their memories longer, more vivid, their wisdom slowly unfolding like ancient scrolls. Their gratitude expressed not in elaborate words, but in quiet, understanding glances, the warmth of their tight hugs, the gentle, reassuring pressure of my mother's hand on my cheek, was a profound balm to my wounded ego, a far more precious currency than any past bonus check or stock option. I realized with a clarity that was almost painful that their urgent need for me wasn't just financial. It was for presence, for genuine connection, for the simple, profound comfort of knowing I was truly there, physically and emotionally. I began to see my children not as demands on my dwindling resources, not as additional burdens to an already heavy load, but as boundless sources of pure, unadulterated joy, their energy infectious, their innocence a constant source of wonder and renewed perspective. Their innocent, uninhibited questions, their boundless curiosity about the simplest things, their simple, heartfelt requests for a game of catch in the yard or a comforting bedtime story, became the true, invaluable currency of my life, precious moments of pure, unblemished happiness that transcended all material concerns. There was no wealth to be found in the fluctuating, unpredictable stock market or in the volatile, speculative world of cryptocurrencies that could even begin to compare to the feeling of their small, trusting hands wrapped tightly around mine, their trust absolute, their love unconditional, a boundless wellspring. The road ahead was still undeniably long, filled with financial uncertainties, the shadow of past debt still lingering persistently like a hungry ghost. But the crushing, suffocating weight of despair had, miraculously, begun to lift, replaced by a quiet, unwavering resolve, a gentle, deeply rooted sense of purpose. I wasn't rich, not in the way I once was, not with sprawling assets and effortlessly flowing passive income streams, but I was slowly, deliberately learning to be profoundly content with what I had. My resilient family, their precious health, the quiet, unvarnished dignity of honest, hard-won work, and the unexpected, profound strength found in vulnerability, in openly admitting my struggles and bravely building something new, something real together from the ground up. The warmth in my wife's eyes when she looked at me, no longer filled with a pervasive, consuming worry, but now with a deep, abiding love, a silent understanding of our shared, arduous journey, was worth more, infinitely more than any investment portfolio, any stellar credit rating, any dizzying startup valuation could ever hope to be. My values had been comprehensively reevaluated not by deliberate choice, but by brutal, undeniable necessity, forged in the searing fires of loss and hardship, and in the quiet, fertile ashes of that profound loss, something truer, more resilient, more deeply meaningful, had begun to slowly, quietly grow, like a tenacious seed pushing through hardened, unforgiving earth, reaching for the light. The desperate search for a way out had led me not to another grand fortune, not to another dazzling opportunity for external validation, but to a quiet, profound acceptance of a different, more enduring kind of richness, one measured not in dollars or material possessions, but in precious fleeting moments, in authentic connection, a gently bittersweet realization of what truly, fundamentally matters, of the quiet, enduring strength found in everyday love, unwavering resilience, and the simple, profound beauty of being truly present. Has life ever handed you a curveball that completely forced you to redefine your values, ultimately leading you to find unexpected contentment in the quiet aftermath? Share your story and insights in the comments below. Hit that like button if this resonated with your own experiences, and subscribe to Credit and Coffee for more journeys through life's financial and emotional lessons. What's one small, unexpected joy you experienced this week that money simply couldn't buy, something that truly nourished your soul?